Hi, my name's Manjeet Mann, and I'd like to say a really big thank you to Manchester Libraries for inviting me to make this video for them and allowing me to talk about my writing and my debut young adult novel, Run, Rebel. So I am a writer. Welcome to my writing room. This is where I do all of my work. So I came to writing through writing plays. I'm also an actress, so writing for theatre sort of came quite naturally to me. It seemed like the next logical step, seeing as I've worked on stage for about 20 years. Writing plays came quite naturally, and then I started writing little bits for TV and film. And then this year, my debut young adult novel came out. Let's have a look at it again. Run, Rebel. So Run, Rebel is a young adult novel, and it is told in verse, which basically means that the story is told through a series of poems rather than prose. So if we take a little look inside, as you can see, that's the setup of the book. It's like each page is a poem within itself, and all the poems together form the story. And the reason why I chose to write in verse, well, firstly, I really don't feel like I chose to write in verse. It feels like it just came out that way. And I feel like it probably came out that way because, again, it kind of comes from my acting background, where I feel like writing poetry lends itself to performance in a way. When I was actually writing it, I found myself reading the sentences out loud. And actually, a lot of people who have read the book have said that they couldn't help but sort of like read passages out loud. So I would say, if you read it, go for it, please. It lends itself to that. It lends itself to performance. So I think, again, it was kind of like in my comfort zone of how I write and a performance. So that's why it's written in verse. So talking about that, I'd like to just start with reading you an extract from the very beginning, from the prologue, which sets up the whole story, and I think gives you a little taste of the main character and who she is and her fight through the book. Prologue. A wound triggered by a beating. It grew, thriving on neglect. It swelled, flourishing on her spine. When ripe, a clotted blister. It crippled her, weighing down on a too small frame for her adolescent age. My mother sat hunchback working, silent, ignored and ignoring pins of prickly pain pulsing. "What's wrong with your daughter?" a neighbour asked. "She's not sitting or standing upright. It's been weeks." My grandmother looked at my mother as if she were observing her for the first time. My grandmother fell to the floor, crumpled like a sheet falling from a washing line, my mother tells me. Slumped on the back of a motorbike, my mother travelled along dusty dirt tracks through several Indian villages to the nearest hospital. The poison drained, the rotten flesh carved, gouged, burrowed out. My mother concealed her anger. Her mother showed no remorse. The wound, now a scar, the size of a fist, a crater buried between shoulder blades. It is the curse of being a girl, my mother tells me. You are the property of your parents, husband, brothers. You endure. Never question it. I question it. So I really like that last sentence because I just sort of feel like straight away you know who the main character is and you know who you're going to be reading. So it does feature a teenage girl called Amber. She is the lead character in the book. And Amber is desperate to live her own life on her own terms. But she comes from quite a difficult home life. She witnesses a lot of threatening behaviour. There's a lot of domestic abuse in the family, and this is in contrast with her school life, which is full of fantastic friendships and teen crushes and this passion for athletics that she has. She really wants to be a professional runner, but when her father refuses to allow her to become part of the athletics team, it's absolutely heartbreaking for Amber, and she starts to feel really isolated and really angry, because running is where she deals with all of these difficulties in her life. This is where she feels she can really let go of some emotions and feel really free. And so without that, she feels completely hopeless. So I'd like to read you another poem from the book, and I think it really encapsulates Amber's love for running. Running. School field. Muddy, damp, cold. I love it. I'm on my own. I get transported. I feel free. It's the only time I ever really feel free. Team sports don't appeal. Hockey at our school is like gang warfare. An hour of getting battered and bruised, girls coming at me with sticks aiming for ankles, but now the track is my time. I shift my thoughts, try and make sense of stuff. With each stride, I zoom through anger, leap through sadness, tear through loneliness, and come out the other side newer, happier, better. Always better than before. It feels like the world slows down, allowing me to catch up with thoughts that usually race. I go to places in my head that aren't here, of this place, of this time. The lines in my head get tangled, see? They get mixed up, crisscross. Running makes the lines straighter. Turns down the rage in my stomach, loosens the phantom grip on my throat. Provides respite from the familiar urge to escape. Running gives me a purpose. Running gives me a reason to live. Now, as the novel progresses, Amber starts to fight back, and she starts to learn about revolutions in her history lessons at school, and it inspires her to make a difference in her own life and stand up to her dad. So the novel's actually broken up into 8 different stages which mimic the stages of a revolution, and the 8 stages of a revolution mirror what is actually happening in Amber's own life. So I'd like to read you another poem, and it's at a real turning point of the book where Amber finally stands up for herself. Dad's back. Turn the volume down, turn the telly off. He stands in the doorway, swaying. No more. Last time. No more excuses. He can wait 5 minutes. When he starts to rage, I stand in front of Mum. He tries to take a punch and I catch his fist. I hold it tight. Leave it! Leave it! Mum screams. I don't want you to get hurt. But I stand tall. I stand strong. My stare unflinching. My body strong. And suddenly, Dad doesn't seem that big anymore. I think. Looks like I do have my dad's height after all. Now, as you read this book, you'll soon see that Amber's not always a likeable character. There are incidences of bullying, which will have you questioning whether you really want to be on her side or not. But the reason why I wrote the character that way is because I kind of felt that it was more real. Like, none of us are perfect. We can all behave in ways that don't show our best selves. And Amber is someone who is dealing with quite a lot, and she doesn't speak to anybody about it. She keeps a lot of her problems from home secret, as she feels like she can't tell anybody because nobody will understand, or there's a lot of shame attached to what's going on at home as well for her. And so because of that, she's got all of these emotions, they're all pent up inside her, and they end up coming out and having some quite negative consequences on those around her. So she ends up bullying a girl in her year, and it's really quite horrendous. So the book does deal with some, heavy issues, threatening behaviour, bullying, domestic abuse. But I also hope that you will see this universal story of hope and resilience and rising up against all the odds and fighting for the life that you want to live, and fighting for change, not only on the outside but on the inside as well. And I really hope that if you can see that Amber is definitely a character that you can get behind. So one of the big questions that I get asked quite a lot is what was the inspiration behind Run Rebel? Well, there's a couple of things really. Firstly, it's kind of based on a lot of my own experiences when I was younger, a lot of the people and places that I knew and grew up around, a lot of the stories that I heard. It's not autobiographical, but there is a lot of me in there. So for instance, it doesn't say it anywhere in the book, but for me, this is set in the Midlands. It's set where I grew up. I grew up in a town outside Birmingham, and even though it's never explicitly said in there, I know that that's where it's set, and so that's the voice that I hear in my head when I read it. But it could be set anywhere. It could be set where you live if you like. And it's also inspired by this fantastic project that I did a few years ago, and I worked with a group of women who were survivors of domestic violence. And I remember sort of like hearing their brave and amazing stories every week. And at the time, I had thought about the story of Run Rebel, but I'd kind of talked myself out of writing it because I thought, oh, it's not relevant. No one's going to want to hear this story. These issues that I grew up with, they're not issues anymore. Which is just completely, incorrect. I think I was just trying to talk myself out of writing it really. And then when I worked with these women, and there were also young girls in this group as well, and I sort of heard that, there was a lot of crossover with my childhood, and I was hearing a lot of stories that were very familiar, and a lot of issues that were still, very prevalent in society today. So, for instance, a lot of the girls kind of talked about this feeling that, their life wasn't their own to live, the path was all laid out for them and they had no choices. And I honestly thought that was something that was only relevant to me when I was younger, and I really thought, oh no, kids nowadays have it easy, which is just, completely wrong. For a lot of people, there's a lot of people going through a lot of difficulties, of course there are, but yeah, I didn't realise just how prevalent these issues still are. And so then when I thought about it, I thought, I do need to write this book. I think it is really important. I think there's a lot of there's a lot of issues out there that aren't being spoken about as much as they should be, and I thought if I can put that into a book, it might do some good. So yeah, it was kind of those two things coming together that inspired me to write Run Rebel. So I'd like to finish off with just one more poem if I can, and it's one of my favourite poems in the book. It's called Bina, and I really like it because I feel like it's a real call to arms for anyone who's ever felt like they're being judged for who they are. And for me, this poem basically says, You just keep being who you are. You stand in your strength. And anyone who is judging you, it is their problem. Okay, Bina. She's that girl. Fell in love at 15, girl. Pregnant at 16, girl. She's that girl. The one who everyone talks about, girl. The one who can't shake off her past, girl. The one everyone fears, girl. Because she's not ashamed, girl. The proud girl. Despite her past, girl. The one they wish would disappear, girl. The fighter girl. The one who can corrupt, girl. Holds her head up high, girl. Sticks her middle finger up, girl. Laughs too loudly, girl. Doesn't know her place, girl. Should know her place, girl. Takes up space, girl. Proudly stands tall, girl. Not moving for no one, girl. Not apologising for nothing, girl. Owning her right to be here, girl. Not cowering, girl. Lifting up others, girl. Giving the voiceless a voice, girl. Despite everything, she survived, girl. And boy, does that scare some folk. Thank you so much for listening to me talk about Run Rebel. Okay, see you soon. Bye.